Well, the Prime Minister, as we've been talking about tonight, is under significant pressure to maintain unity as his government fractures over the Israel-Palestine conflict. Albanese has expressed his support on multiple occasions, including at that synagogue last week, where he claimed to speak on behalf of the government. But, as we talked about earlier, there's been a string of Labor MPs express their support for Palestine.
I feel very strongly that Palestinians are being collectively punished here for Hamas's barbarism.
The idea of war crimes is something that needs to be investigated. I would be loath to claim war crimes without a full investigation. That is how international law operates.
As the State of Israel deprives the entire population, men, women and children, of the basic necessities of life, food, water, electricity, gas and medicines, we must condemn it.
There is no justification whatsoever under any rules of war or anything that will allow a civilian population to square off against an army.
So IDF is a terrorist organisation as well?
It is an army. Can I just say that we stand with the people of Gaza.
Let's bring in National Senator for Queensland, Matt Canavan. Matt, it's pretty risky, isn't it, to see this kind of division in the government's ranks at a time of global upheaval?
Well, Caleb, I first, though, want to just put the emphasis here on the suffering that's occurring in the Middle East. That's got to be front and centre in any discussion. It's just been a harrowing couple of weeks for the world, and there's no doubt there's innocent people suffering on all sides here. I also think that, number two, I don't have any problem in a democratic nation with different members of parliament expressing different views on issues. And I don't think the statements of any of the politicians here in Canberra is going to have a material impact on Israel's ability to defend itself and or what is actually happening on the ground there in the Middle East. I also think, look, overall, the Prime Minister, as you've said up front, has said the right things. I think he had a bit of a stumbling response last week while he was distracted.
It took him a while
with the voice, but this week, he's found his straps. I think it was a very good motion that was supported by almost all here in the Parliament. And all I'd ask is for, especially the Labor ministers, is they be very careful with what they say to support the Prime Minister's mission now. He's going to the United States next week. I think we need the government, the executive government, those ministers in those government do need to try and present a united front as much as possible. And what we really should be focused on, I think, from our country's perspective, is avoiding a broader war here. There's no doubt that Israel has to respond to these barbaric attacks. There's no doubt then that response will, unfortunately, lead to more suffering, including of innocent lives. The blame for that is should be sheeted home to Hamas, who started all this. But of course, there's now also bigger risks of this blowing out into a broader conflict, which would be terrible for the whole world. So I do wish the Prime Minister all the best in the US next week, because I think all Australians, we're a peaceful nation. We want to see peace maintained as much as possible.
Well, you talk about this visit to the US. He's going to Washington for a state dinner at the White House. We were just talking before with Bronwyn Bishop and Jason Morrison about whether or not the Prime Minister should make a visit to Tel Aviv as well. Rishi Sunak's just landed there today. Joe Biden landed there yesterday. Ought we send a representative?
Look, I'm not so sure about that. There's obviously people with a lot more intelligence about these matters than me, but I was a little concerned about the President Biden travelling there this week into a conflict zone, and it hasn't probably gone. It definitely didn't go to plan, let's say, given the fallout from the hospital tragedy and the subsequent cancellation of meetings with Jordan with Arab nations. I think this has to be handled very, very carefully, and as I say, everything that should be done in a way to seek to not further inflame tensions here. I'm not so sure what a visit from the Australian Prime Minister would achieve. I certainly don't think we should be seeking to go there because somehow we want to make this about us. It's not about us. It's not about Australia. It's about the region now, the Middle East region, resolving these differences, responding to these barbaric attacks in the most precise way as possible, so that we don't see an inflammation of tensions and we don't see a wider conflict. I mean, I think there's time for some people to be very frank. I mean, the thing that keeps me up the wake even more than energy prices now, Caleb, is another world war. I fear that there's just been this drumbeat these last couple of years, and I hope that in 10 years' time or so we don't look at these last 2 years as the sort of Spanish Civil War period of the leading up to the World War. So that's
I'm
what
sorry,
we should
Matt,
be focused on.
we've run out of time, but I totally agree with you. We don't want to see that. Thank you for joining me, mate.